Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Salam Media. I'm your host, Dakir Daud, on this beautiful Friday evening. Once again, we're chatting all things sports. For those of you that just tuned in, interact with us, engage with us, get hold of us on social media at Salam Media. And you can also use the hashtag Friday Night Sports. And also, you can get hold of us on our studio line 010-880-2396, or you can pop us a WhatsApp on 061-766-0355. For those of you that will be missing the show due to prior arrangements, but you do want to tune in, it will be on our social media platforms as well as the website where the podcasts will be up later on this week. But for now, we're going to be chatting all things cricket this evening. And then later on, we're going to be chatting to Mohammed Junaid Shafika, who is a Kung Fu champion. Interesting. But right now, we're going to be chatting all things cricket with the former president and CEO of the Gauteng Cricket Board, Sikenda Vadvala, who's going to be giving us a bit of a breakdown on what happened in this week in the cricket world. I mean, it was crazy. We had the SA20 auction that took place, massive auction, spectacular. If you ever wanted to see a state of the art South African function, that auction was out of the top draw. But besides the auction, what went down was just insane. The value and the worth of South African players skyrocketed. They were insane. But on that point, Themba Bavuma, Andile Petlakwayo, not being bought on the auction? Was their base price too high? Or do we have a false sense of entitlement, if you want to call it that, for players that have been great for South Africa but are pretty average to the rest of the world? We want to hear what you have to say. Pop a comment in the comment section below and engage and interact with us, and let's hear your side of the story and what you think about the auction. But for now, we're going to be chatting to the expert about everything happening in the world of cricket. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Vadvala. Thanks so much for joining me on Salam Media this evening.
Walaikum salam, and thank you for having me.
Mr. Vadvala, being the former vice president, former CEO, what do you miss the most about cricket, man?
The hype, the hype. But it's the hype is what keeps you going, and the hype is intertwined with the ability to make sure that we were able to bring all our people from whatever area they came from whatever background. We were supposed to make sure that we gave opportunities, and given opportunities, we must make sure that we can concretize those opportunities so those players can actually go onto the world stage. And so I'm extremely happy that you've raised this issue of our national captain, Themba Bavuma, and Andile Petlakwayo. Now, you asked the question whether their base price was too high. Well, I think everybody started from a base price, and I think 850,000 Rand is not much at all if one considers what some of the players earned. But I think, here's the dilemma we face. South Africa, to me, is a unique country. We've come through sport in a very different way. We've had to try and grow this game in all specters of our society because there was no opportunity. There was no facilities. When you have your national captain who's earned his stripes, has shown time and again that he has the ability and capability, and he doesn't get picked up on an auction for a competition which is going to be held in his own country, then something is sadly lacking. And I raised this point the other day as well, is that my own opinion is that all our contracted players, our national players, the white ball players, should have been put up and allocated to the 6 franchises, and they then bid for them. Once you've closed that deal, then you can go to the rest of it. And I say that because South Africa is unique. So what kind of level of understanding has been put into the contracts for these franchise holders that our national captain is not taken up on the auction? Can you imagine somebody like Virat Kohli not being auctioned?
I
If
think
he
it would
was the
just be
captain of
chaos
India,
in India. It would be chaos. They would
they'll
totally
burn
kick
the place.
against the
They'll
wall.
burn the place down. They'll burn the place down.
Mm,
So I think there's a huge almost a deficit in the way this has been set up. And can you imagine Temba Bavuma now going with his team to India to go and play in a couple of T20s and ODIs? What impact is this negative thing of not being auctioned going to have on him and his
mm,
leadership capability? Now, knowing Temba, I don't think it'll do anything because he's got the strength to come through it. But I think we've lost something. We've lost something, and for me, that that he wasn't auctioned and that he
mm.
wasn't bought says volumes about the fact that we have people in each of those teams who are South Africans, who are either the coaches or the the deputy coaches. Why didn't they push for him? He's your
Mm.
national captain. They know the effort that has to be put in by our players who come from the previously disadvantaged areas. The amount of effort they have to put in to be able to get to the top is extremely high. I mean, their effort is
Mm.
probably 200% to anybody else. And knowing that they've all come through that same vein, why is it that they didn't push? And that's the question that
Mm.
needs asking.
There's so many questions around this, and let's skip past what my next question would have been was asking about a false sense of entitlement and thinking that maybe we just deceiving ourselves and maybe Temba is average. But here's the question: you, as a previous administrator, you fought to put so many things in place to ensure that sport in this country moves forward and moves smoothly. But now we've got franchise owners that come into a completely privatized competition, and everything that the previous administrators put in place, such as quota systems, such as selection policies to make sure that the playing field is level, all gets thrown out of the door because of a couple of $1 million that's now put on the table. Where does this leave the administration of South African cricket?
Well, I think you're posing an extremely important question. And it is something that they should have addressed prior to us going out, knowing full well that the circumstances under which we operate are completely different to any other country in the world.
Mm,
And knowing full well that where we've come from, okay, has meant that we have had to open doors to give opportunity. And I don't call it an entitlement, I call it an opportunity because the playing fields are still not level today, many, many years after we entered into unity. So if you have to take the current state of affairs of cricket in this country, there is nobody in the CSA board who can tell me that the playing fields have been leveled. Far from it.
mm,
We've tried, we've kept going. But you know what? Somewhere along the line, CSA should have stepped in and said, we need to make sure that certain criteria is put into those contracts in order to ensure that all our players are given opportunity.
mm,
Now, you've had other players who've been bought for 5, 6, 7 million rand, okay? And your national captain doesn't take over. What does that say about South African cricket? And what does it say to the world about what we think of our own national captain?
mm.
That's an indictment on all of them.
It is, and to think that he's the guy that we should be putting on a pedestal. Um, you know, this tournament is pretty much like the IPL, just on African soil. But if you look at some of the legislation and the policies that the Indian Cricket Board has put in place, where a certain amount of young under 21 Indian players need to be selected, this is the amount of Indian players that need to be selected in order for that team to take the field in the IPL. I find it shocking that a similar process wasn't done for the SA20, because now it's almost like we've just given up our facilities for international cricketers to come enjoy, and our top class cricketers are spectators in their own backyard.
Well, you're raising an extremely valid point. Um, and I said the other night that if one considers the way the IPL is gone and you evaluate exactly what it has done for India cricket, then you could take a leaf out of their book, take the best of what works, and add in what I believe is necessary for South Africa, and then implement that to get the best of both worlds for our people. Now, you raised the issue around the youngsters. I think in the previous IPL, they called them rookies, okay?
Yeah.
And each team had to buy 4 rookies, okay? I don't know if we've seen that in South Africa. But how do you start that if you haven't even got your national captain being bought, okay? Then the second point, which I think becomes very relevant, is that have you considered that the players that were put up for auction, okay, is extremely limited? Where are the top class Australian players? Where are the top class New Zealand players, the West Indies? Okay. Where are the top class Indian players? You know that India will not release their top players to play in any other T20 competition other than if they're playing for their country or in IPL, right? We did not even open our doors to Pakistan. So if you think about us trying to create an international SA20 competition, and I know we say we're only starting, why is it that we have so little international players who have come through who I think could have added extremely valuable contributions to South African cricket? It's very limited.
I mean, we look at the Mzansi Super League a couple of years ago. We had the likes of Chris Gale. We had international quality players that were playing on local soil. So this is the kind of things that we ask. And if this is an international competition, where do we see ourselves moving? Because South Africa hosted a Africa T20 this past week, which was successful. It was amazing. But now you ask yourself the question, Zimbabwe has been in and out of the system for how many years? How many Zimbabwean players were actually invited or put on the line to have an opportunity of being exposed to the bigger and the greater cricketing world? Because they get in the odd series against Bangladesh, against Sri Lanka, but now here's a tournament in Africa. Why are Africans not involved?
I am so glad you've raised this. Again, South Africa being a test playing nation, probably one of the top playing countries in the world, we should have embarked on a process in order to grow Africa cricket. If you take years ago, Zimbabwe had fantastic cricketers. I don't say they don't have them now. Kenya
Mhm.
had fantastic cricketers. Namibia. Wherever cricket was being played and wherever cricket was taken in Africa, surely part of what we should have been doing was to try and get those countries, even if they became a team on their own and represented their country in this competition, would we not have been growing this game for the betterment of cricket in Africa? So we think we're going to grow the game of cricket in South Africa. But like you've said, the likes of other African nations who play cricket, have they been considered? What opportunities are going to be given? And if so, how are they going to grow? What about our own youth? If we haven't got the and I'm going to use the word, if we don't have the balls to actually auction our own national captain, what does it say about us as individuals? And can you rightfully say that when those teams take the field and your national captain is sitting out there, what it's going to mean? It's the mind boggles.
I think it's totally absurd. And the radio silence from the media has actually been it's been deafening because people are asking questions. And there's even a viewer that asked the question earlier on Facebook. Does Bavuma deserve a place in the national team? Looking at his strike rate, he's got a phenomenal strike rate. He's one of your dynamic, explosive players that are in South Africa, that's been part of the South African setup. And now to be asking questions like this, I feel it's totally degrading for someone that's taken South Africa to heights that they wouldn't have seen if it wasn't for Bavuma. Because put the cricket aside, as a captain, as a leader, he led the team through the Black Lives Matter campaign and created awareness to the world around that. And that takes true guts to do something like that. So it leaves us again with the question: why, why?
Yeah, well, you see, I think your listeners must actually think very deeply. The fact that Temba was injured, okay, which prevented him from playing in a number of these last series, okay, means that your eye is off the ball. But when Temba was captain of the Gauteng Lions team, okay, go and look at his records. Go and see what he has done. Look at the number of competitions that they won under his captaincy. That'll give you an understanding of where he's come from. One is also need to understand that Temba has had to fight his way through to prove himself. So many times he was overlooked. For a long time, he was overlooked for the national team, and he kept prodding away, and he kept prodding away, and he showed it. I mean, his results proved it. And when he came in, he showed what his capability is. Now, we mustn't be short-sighted. Because he was injured, we don't see him, so we want to compare him to the players who've been playing. But he's still your national captain. So you don't throw away the fact that he has brought this team together, the fact that he had got results when he was captain of the Gauteng Lions, and the fact that he has been able to demonstrate his resilience by fighting his way back into the team. You don't cast that away. And the fact that he wasn't auctioned and not taken up is an indictment on cricket in South Africa.
Lots to look at and lots for us to ponder about as South Africans and sports administrators watching the show, because it is a sports specific show. A lot for us to think about going forward and see where we're taking sport as a whole in this country, because stuff like this can't be done in our own playground. But Mr. Vadvala, looking on the other side of things, looking at Sisanda Megala, that has only played 4 international T20 matches for the Proteas. Many would say he struggled a bit at the highest level. But looking at his base price of 170,000 and then being sold to what 5.4 million at the auction, what is your thoughts on the player? And do you think he totally deserved the price that was put? And has he got a lot that he will be offering the Sunrisers Eastern Cape?
Yeah, there's no doubt he's got a lot to offer. And again, here's a player who has demonstrated his ability, has come through on a number of occasions, okay, and has won games, all right? And that is why I'm saying that if you take that as an example and you use that to be able to actually motivate, if he was able to get there, how is it possible that your national captain did not get there? And this is where the question gets posed, is that surely the way we've actually structured the deals should have been done differently, because South Africa is so unique and because our situation in this country is unique. We should have changed the rules to be more opportunistic for our own people.
100% opportunistic would be the word to use. And in this case, I guess money talks, if we call it like that. And if we look at going the political route, do you think there's deeper meaning behind everything, seeing that there isn't a number of Pakistani players that were available for the auction? Do you think this runs that political that we must look into it? Or is it something that could just be overlooked because of the quality of players that were on offer at the auction?
Well, I'd beg to differ on that. I mean, one has to just take the second ODI, the second T20 that was played the other night between England and Pakistan, and look at Babar Azam, 100 and somewhat runs. They won the game with no wickets down. Is that telling you that there's quality? Absolutely. Are they going to come here? No. So are we not losing out? Have they not got the ability to be able to actually give off of the expertise that they've got to our players, to our people? And this is the question I keep posing. Why is it that we have made sure in a certain way that certain players have been precluded. Why? Because we South Africa, we should have been including everybody in order for them to come in here and assist us to grow our game and help our people. So we've lost a great opportunity.
It makes me think, it makes me ponder how deeply rooted is the issues and how structurally, how politically favorable, if that would be the term to use, was this tournament structured and organized to favor who? But that's a question we can ask and we can talk about for days. And you, as the listeners and viewers at home, feel free to interact and engage with us and tell us your thoughts on the SAT20 and obviously the signings that went down and what were some of the signings that surprised you and who impressed you in that. Mr. Vavala, moving on and looking at the year and the season that we have ahead. Later on this year, Captain Temba Bavuma will be taking his team to the ICC Men's T20 World Cup that will be taking place in Australia. South African cricket at this moment in time, so much happening, so much going on. Do you think that we'll be ready for this T20 tournament? And knowing that we've got India in our group and a let's say a giant slayer in Bangladesh in our group as well.
Yeah, I don't think we wouldn't be prepared. I think the team has come a long way. I'm so glad that Temba is recovered. And I know Temba, and I can tell you now that Temba has got that fighting spirit that a lot of people don't know of. And so I am of the opinion that he'll be a good leader and watch this space. They're going to go to India first, and that's going to be challenging because when you're playing India in India, you have everything stacked against you. But this team, I think, under his leadership, is going to show their mettle. And I honestly believe that you're going to see Temba rise to the top. And I am hoping and praying that he takes this and then actually comes back with the trophy when they come back from Australia in order to demonstrate that he has the ability, the capability, and the wherewithal to lead this team, to lead our national team, and to show people that he's a great cricketer.
And I think that will definitely silence all the critics and a lot of the media that's been writing him off, if you want to call it that, in the literal sense, because it's all just written. All the hard work's been done in the field, and it's crazy how a blind eye's been basically shown to a player that's proved himself year in and year out on the cricketing circuit. Mr. Wadvala, it was amazing chatting to you, and I feel like this is a chat that could go on for days, knowing everything that's happening in the cricket circles and what's happening in the cricket world, if you want to call it that, behind the scenes, on the field, and how so many deeply rooted issues are surfacing and coming through a tournament that was supposed to create opportunities for South Africans and expose South African talent to the world. Thank you so much for joining us on Salam Media this evening and sharing your thoughts and valued opinions that come with the wealth of experience that you have in the industry and also the years that you've served as an administrator. We really, really appreciate your time. Shukran so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. That was Mr. Sikandar Vadvala giving us a bit of background on what the T20 SA20 will be, what's going to be happening, what's going to be taking place, and how things have unfolded from the auction. Not off to the best start, but will the tournament be able to surprise many and maybe bounce back and overshine what happened in the build up to the tournament? We're going to have to wait and see. All the listeners and viewers, stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. When we do come back, we're going to be chatting all things Kung Fu. We're going to be chatting to Mohammed Junaid Shafika and his son, Mohammed Shafel, who won 4 gold medals at the IKF World Kung Fu Champions in Turkey. Let's hear all about that after the break. Stay tuned.